Morning.
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 Before you meet Chris Dunn, I just want to tell you a little story how I met Chris for the very first time. He was running the overnight shelter at King's Harvest at that time. And we made all these sandwiches and all these snacks. And there was an incredible blizzard, one of the worst I've ever seen. And I called him up, didn't know him from Adam, and I said, Chris, I got all these sandwiches, all these snacks, but I don't know if I can get them there. My dad was still alive at the time, and we weren't sure if his caretaker would be able to get to the house to take care of him, so I was going to go there. So he said, if you can just get them to my house, he said, I'll make sure they get them. So I drove through that blizzard, and I think I got stuck at an intersection, and he walked down from his house, and we met there in the street and made our little exchange. Since then, I've seen Chris, our paths have crossed on and off. He has served the homeless for well over 20 years. And I've seen his dedication, compassion, as he walks alongside the homeless, all with extreme humbleness. And I'm very proud to have you meet Chris Dunn.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Thanks to you all for inviting me. It's such a pleasure to be here with you all today. And thanks for all your singing. And especially thanks to Tom for inviting me. But thanks for all your singing, because I'm going to ask you to sing with me right about now.
I thought you were going to say thanks for Tom for singing, and I was, what?
So I don't know if you were singing or not, Tom. This is a song I wrote while I was living in a Catholic worker house in Chicago with people that were experiencing homelessness. It's called Everybody Needs a Home. And I think the chorus is right there. That's your part. Home is where the heart is, and I love these downtown streets. But the street is no place to call a home, and in the shelter at night it can feel so alone. Everybody needs a home. Everybody needs a place to call their own. Living on the street ain't nowhere to be. Everybody needs their dignity. Home is where you want to be. When you're home, you're with your family. Home is a place where you relax with friends. Home is a feeling on which you can depend. Everybody needs a home. Everybody needs a place to call their own. Living on the street ain't nowhere to be. Everybody needs their dignity. When I'm comfortable, I say I feel at home. When I'm home, I never feel alone. My home right here is where I wanna be. Home is part of the community. Everybody needs a home. Everybody needs a place to call their own. Living on the street ain't nowhere to be. Everybody needs their dignity. Well, the shelters round here, they get full at night. But housing's not a privilege, it's a right.
And this is what I've got to know. Why do some people have nowhere to go? Everybody needs a home. Everybody needs a place to call their own. Living on the street ain't nowhere to be. Everybody needs their dignity. Everybody needs a home. Everybody needs a place to call their own. Living on the street ain't nowhere to be. Everybody needs their dignity.
Amen.
Well, thanks everybody for singing with. So I work with people that are experiencing homelessness, and we use that terminology rather than saying homeless people, because that doesn't determine who they are. Everybody has a story, everybody comes from somewhere, everybody's on a journey, and I feel like it's my job to journey with people as they're experiencing this time of difficulty and trouble. I work at Humility Homes and Services. That's the shelter over in Davenport at 6th and Vine. And we are a low barrier shelter, and that means that we try to just take people as they come. We don't require you to do a breathalyzer or a drug test. We don't require an ID. So any of these things can be a barrier to getting into other types of shelters. We just happen to be a low barrier shelter, so we try to keep it as safe for everybody that we have in there as possible without creating extra restrictions. So the philosophy that we use is called housing first. And housing first means that with housing, with a place to live, with a place to go, it's more, it's better, it's more possible, it's more doable to get everything else that you need, get your life together. If you're out on the street, you know, someone stole your backpack, you know, you're trying to figure out what you're doing every day. Sometimes it's hard to put things back together. People have sometimes multiple barriers to get housing. So when possible, we are able to do that for people, get them into housing. And then if they need mental health services, or if they need addiction services, or if they need any other services, we can help with that. And so there's programs which, like, depending on the level of need, like the highest level of need is permanent supportive housing. So that's for people that are chronically homeless. Then there's rapid rehousing for people that have a higher need than people that maybe just need first month's rent and deposit. And we also have that available to the people that we're working with right now. Thank God we have the funding for that, because when I first started at the shelter, that wasn't available. So it makes a big difference as far as getting people their housing. So like I said, we're housing first. That's what we try to do. We also have a very, very, very good program for veterans. There are actually 2 programs for veterans that we have, and they do excellent work serving our vets at the shelter and in our program. I myself work in street outreach. So that's a program where when people are staying outside, I can still be their caseworker. And so the HUD definition for that is staying at a place that's not fit for habitation. So if you're staying in your car, or if you're sleeping in a doorway, those are the people that I'm working with. On Friday, I met someone who's sleeping in her mom's garage. And she's been experiencing, mental health difficulties related to PTSD, related to domestic violence.
So, we see a lot of people in trauma, and so we try to work with them and help them, get back on their best foot, working towards getting them into housing. So some of the things that are one of the biggest barriers, I think, to people getting back on their feet is poverty. And the other thing that's a barrier is isolation. When I do an intake with someone, we always ask them, what is your emergency contact person? And a great number of them have nobody. There's like, well, in case of an emergency, who do we, is there a family member I can let know? That's, because, and sometimes there are people dying in the hospital. That happened just this week. Someone's, they're trying to make decisions, and we don't even know who to contact. So it's extreme isolation, extreme poverty, a lot of trauma is what we're generally working with. And I'm really blessed to be part of the organization that I work for. The support is there. That we're a good team. We work really well together, and you kind of have to doing this kind of work. So I just wanted to mention a couple of things. So I mentioned the person I met staying in her mom's garage this week. There's another gentleman I'm working with. He's on my caseload. He's working at a restaurant. He only has part-time work, and he's sleeping outside still. And so he manages to get back and forth to work, but he's working part-time. He doesn't have the income to really afford a place. So another big barrier in our community is lack of affordable housing. That is a huge barrier. A number of people have disability income. So I'm kind of switching topics here. This gentleman, he's working, but he doesn't have enough money to afford, and even a $500 apartment. I think what did he say? He's making about $800 a month right now. So, and $800 a month is what someone usually makes when they're on SSI or disability income. So with $800 a month, a landlord's going to say, I'm sorry, I can't rent to you. So we end up working with landlords that don't ask a lot of questions and not always the best. So affordable housing and what you would consider fair housing, or housing that you and I would feel comfortable living in, is really hard to find. So there's just a lot of barriers to what we're doing. Also this week I was working with a gentleman who's very mentally ill, and he was sleeping behind a church downtown. I was able, I arranged for him to get to the shelter, but he wasn't able to follow through on that. So the next day that there was an opening, I was able to go down and give him a ride, because I didn't have the means to give him a ride when I first told him there's an opening, but he just didn't make it there. The mental illness was a barrier for him, I believe. So, I can do that. I can give people rides to the shelter. There's a number of people sleeping behind this particular church, and I've been working with them in getting them out of that situation. And coming to a closing, I guess, I have some suggestions of things. If you wish to donate items that are high need right now, we need blankets, we need socks, gloves, and hats. We need long johns, particularly useful. We need practical shoes and boots, men's and women's. Bus tokens are always good. Winter coats. pretty low on winter coats right now. We've gone through a lot of them. Backpacks are always good. And also, in my work, non-perishable food items, like little non-perishable meals or snacks or things like that, so that I can hand to people when they are not able to get to a meal site, is also very helpful. And if you're able to, volunteering is also available. Our volunteer coordinator is Kayla. So just call us and ask for Kayla and say you'd like to volunteer if you're interested in doing that. We have opportunities for that. And one thing Tom gave me a really lovely introduction, but Tom has befriended people, and that's one of the greatest callings I think that we can offer to people, is actually befriend them. And
Yes.
it's so true. It's so true, because that isolation, that loneliness, that hopelessness can really be alleviated by having someone that they know cares. In the shelter, they may be surrounded by people that they don't know, that just they don't want to, that may not want to know, and it's just they may be very uncomfortable and not being able to figure out a way. So just befriending people is a very high calling, I think, in our Christian work. So I'd like to thank you all so much for listening. And yeah, God bless.